Welcome back, my loves. Welcome back to another episode of the Dare to Rest podcast. I hope you know that that's where you signed up today. Hmm. If you have been a longer time follower on the Dare to Rest podcast, you will have realized by now that we talk about a lot of different things in here. And maybe you're wondering why is that? And the very real reason is that, well, in human design, I am a manifesting generator. And what that means is that I am a multi-passionate human with so many different interests. And from the very beginning, that's what I knew this podcast was going to be about. It was just a beautiful outlet for me to talk about all the things that I love to talk about, and also to show you all the different things that we do inside the Dare to Rest world, all the different topics that we dive into, and to give you an idea of what it would be like to be in the Dare to Rest world and what I work with all the wonderful people who decide to join into my different offers. And I just want to thank you for staying the course, listening to all these different things all the time. I do appreciate that sometimes it can maybe feel a little bit overwhelming to keep up with the pace of what's going on when you're close to someone who has that much fire and energy and different passions in life. So I just wanted to start by thanking you for continuing to tune in here today. It really means a lot to me that we can have this honest relationship, and yeah, I'm just really feeling grateful. And today we're going to talk about relationships. I'm going to talk about the silent killer in your relationships and in my relationships and in everyone's relationship. When you think about it, anything in life, anything is about relationships. You have a relationship to your body, to yourself, to money, to your partner, to your friends, to your car, to your past, to your present, to your future. You have a relationship to your desires. You have relationships to everything. And we all do. And because of that, a huge part of the work I do is actually relationship work because it's the root of everything. And here we're not just talking about romantic relationships, but we relate to everything around us. And since we are relating to something, we have a relationship to everything. And across the board, when we look at relationship, there's one thing I see again and again and again that slowly, quietly destroys these relationships. And here I'm especially talking about relationships between humans. Before I tell you what this silent killer is, I want you to take just 10 seconds. What do you think it is? What do you think the silent killer is? Well, now just soften for a moment. Just notice where your shoulders are. Maybe you can roll them back. You can unclench your jaw. You can take a deep breath. whichever way or form you can, give yourself permission to soften something, even soften a lot, if you can. Exhaling. So right now, I really wish I could hear your guess. Maybe you want to drop it in the comments. That would be awesome, actually. But I'm gonna reveal what the biggest death sentence or the silent killer in any human to human relationship is. And it is resentment. You can feel that, right? You can't even say the word resentment without feeling a heaviness, a contraction, that quiet, like someone hits you in the stomach. We've all been there, feeling resentment. It is such a human feeling. It's such a human feeling. In fact, it's so human that we think it's something we have to live with, that is just a part of life. But I'm here to tell you that it's not. It may have been in your life, but it doesn't have to stay in your life. I have a feeling you already intuitively know this, but maybe a small part of you is wondering why? Why is resentment so bad? And really, it's because when resentment is on the table, there is no room for being soft with the other person or with yourself. When resentment is on the table, your heart tends to close. And it creates distance between you in the relationship. It creates solitude, and very often also a sense of self-righteousness. So I really want to explore more what this means. But first, I really just want to encourage you to stay soft with yourself here. No shaming, no judging. We're just opening our eyes to what has potentially been a silent blocker in your relationship for years, a silent blocker that has kept you from having the beautiful, close, intimate relationships that you so desire. I want to talk about what resentment actually is, because resentment is so much more than just being annoyed with someone or yourself, for that matter. Resentment is what's left behind when something in you was hurt, when something was never fully seen, felt, or expressed. So resentment essentially is a residual of hurt. And it's what builds when you gave more than you actually wanted to give. It builds when you said, it's fine, but it really wasn't. It builds when you hoped that they would notice, but they didn't. It builds when you needed something, but you didn't voice it out of fear that you wouldn't get it. And it also builds when you expected something and it didn't happen. So essentially, you can say resentment is unprocessed pain and unmet desires. And underneath all of that, there's always grief. That's the hurt. grief for what didn't happen, grief for what you needed but didn't receive, grief for the version of the relationship you thought you had or hoped you would have, grief for the apology that never came, or grief for the attention that you didn't get. Resentment tends to have that feeling that it leaves you feeling that it's unfair, you feel unseen and incomplete about what happened. I, I want to say again, just know that we all recognize these feelings, but they do not need to take up space in our life. Because the thing about resentment is that it's so fucking sneaky. It's so sneaky. It's actually unfair how sneaky it is. It rarely just walks into the room and says, "Hello, I am resentment. This is me. This is who I am." It's so much more refined. It tends to show up when you say, "I'm fine," but your energy is cold and distant. It shows up in you when you stop sharing the small things that matter to you. Or maybe you start to feel irritated over tiny things that normally wouldn't matter. Resentment shows up as you keeping a mental scorecard of who did what and whose turn is it now to do the laundry, the garbage, call. Resentment shows up when you bring up old situations in new arguments. It shows up when you make little sarcastic comments that almost sound like jokes, but really have such a stingy undertone. It's also when you withdraw emotionally, but you stay physically present. That's also resentment. And eventually, you just start avoiding conversation because what's the point anyway? Nothing ever changes. He never listens. She's always angry. I couldn't be bothered to tell her. Resentment shows up when you overgive and then feel silently angry about it. I gave so much. I never get anything back. Resentment is also the hyper attentiveness to noticing when someone disappoints you again. And after you've been disappointed, you feel the need to see or think, "See, I told you this was going to happen." You expected the bad thing to happen. That's resentment. Resentment is also you feeling annoyed that once again, no one gave you what you desired, but you always give everything to everyone else. And resentment is you silently looking for behavior that proves how this person is not seeing you, loving you, caring for you the way you wanted them to. So resentment is a lot of things. And the really, really shitty thing about resentment is it never just stays the same. It actually grows and grows in silence. Resentment accumulates. So unlike anger or frustration, which tends to just explode, resentment accumulates slowly, quickly, layer by layer by layer, until all of a sudden You're not actually in the relationship anymore. You're in this silent battle of protection, of distance, and unspoken pain. You may physically be there, but you have emotionally withdrawn. And that, my guess is pretty fucking far from where you wanted to be in that relationship. Resentment really has a way of getting in the way of intimacy with the people that we love the most, the ones we want to let into our heart the most. So often, these are the people that resentment builds toward. And that's why we feel so much hurt. That's why relationships are so difficult for so many of us. And though you would think that's enough, we already talked about resentment being sneaky, resentment being accumulating. It's also tricky in other ways because sometimes it can feel like it gives us a sense of power. Resentment feels like something to hold on to in those moments where we feel powerless. Just to give you an idea of what I mean here, it can be that feeling of, oh, I'm right to be feeling this way. They hurt me, so they deserve it. I'm gonna hurt them back. Never let this happen again. And all of that, though it absolutely makes sense that that's how we feel, we have to realize that's all protection mechanisms. It's not love. It doesn't build the relationship. It builds walls. So that power you think you're holding sometimes when you hold on to resentment, that's not power. It's protection. Instead of building a connection, we're building walls. And underneath it all, through all the things we've talked about, what you genuinely desire in all of your relationships is to feel seen, to feel met, to feel understood, to feel safe, to open. And when resentment builds walls, that's just impossible. So take an exhale here. Whew. This is becoming a deeper conversation than I planned. I hope you're here for it. I'm here to deliver it. If you want to shake anything, shake. Maybe just come back to your heart for a moment, inviting your body to soften, to once again unclench your jaw and letting your shoulders drop, reminding yourself that this is such a human emotion, so normal, and we get to transcend this experience. Because there's a shift to be made. If what you really want is a relationship that feels alive, connected, and real, you have to learn how to release resentment. And I want to be so clear here because I have an idea what happened in your mind and in your body when I said that. Releasing resentment does not mean that what happened was okay. It does not mean that you have to tolerate poor behavior. It also does not mean that you have to keep that someone in your life. I want to make that so clear. Releasing resentment does not mean that what happened was okay. It does not mean that you have to tolerate poor behavior. It does also not mean that you have to keep that someone in your life. Releasing resentment means you making a promise to yourself that I am no longer available for carrying this inside my body. I will not let this have a hold of me any longer. Releasing resentment means that you are letting go of the energetic charge that is holding you in this perpetuating loop of suffering and self-righteousness. It's you deciding that you are ending that internal contract that says that you're going to keep hurting yourself over this just to stay right. That's the contract you want to burn. So to start to release resentment, the first thing to come to terms with is that you have to realize that your freedom and the vividness and spaciousness that gets to exist in your body matters more than holding on to a story. It's you actively choosing, my peace matters more than proving a point. My power is keeping my heart open. And my potential is to stay in trust for new connection to unfold. The biggest thing we have to realize about resentment is, and this is honestly the biggest pill to swallow, but the biggest thing we have to realize is that resentment might seem to be punishing the other person. And it does to some extent, but the truth is, you are the one who's living with it the entire time. It lives in you. You're the one feeling it all the time. The burden and the weight of that resentment is largely carried by you. The other person only experiences lashes of it. Breathe, 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 breathe. I remember when I realized this, and that just, it felt like a fucking smack to my face. So if you're having all the feels right now, I feel you. They're welcome. It's allowed. And you don't have to carry this burden. Releasing resentment and inviting forgiveness into the room has nothing to do with weakness or being a pushover. It's about you refusing to no longer carry that burden, to continue to stay in pain. Forgiveness is one of the most brave acts we can do. It's self-love, it's self-leadership. It really is that moment when you decide that your peace, your freedom, your liberation matters more than feeling in control, powerful, right, good, at the expense of your own heart and your own experience of life. So that's the work. That is the work to get rid of that silent killer of your relationships. Learning how to feel, to process, to communicate and release resentment so that your relationships no longer have to suffocate under things that were never spoken, by the unmet desires, by the silent punishment. When the silent killer is off the table, that deep, honest, real, raw, intimate connection that you desire actually has room to grow. And since relationships is such a huge part of our life, this is a huge chunk of the work I do with my co-humans, aka clients, inside both my one-on-one spaces and also inside the Beyond experience. We really get to move beyond that phase of fixing one thing that's just most imminent in the relationship. And rather than just fixing that something, that one thing that's right now wrong, we can go in and we can start to create a structure where we can actually receive and experience relationships with openness, with truth, with intimacy, without carrying years of unspoken weight in the body. Because though this feeling of resentment is so familiar to all of us, it does not have to be at the forefront of our lives. It really, really doesn't. I think the next episode is going to be more cheerful and joyful once again, but really this just it comes down to another saying I have inside the Data Rest world is the depth of who you are determines the height of who you can be. Because any wave needs momentum to build. And sometimes it's looking at these real raw things in life, letting them start to build momentum so we can go even higher. That's what this episode was a representation of, I realize now. Just notice right now how you're feeling in your body. If anything feels stagnant, I'm going to invite you to shake a little bit. Shake your hands, your arms, move your shoulders, shake your entire body if you can. Take this in, but shake off what you no longer need to hold. And of course, if this is something you would like to work with, I will invite you to step closer into the Data Rest world. You're always welcome to DM me asking how and what would be an appropriate next step for you. And no matter what you do from here, I just want to thank you for tuning in. I know that this might not have been the easiest episode to listen to. So I want to let you know that I see you, I honor you, and I hold you in whatever feelings this might have stirred in you. You're so awesome. You're so brave. Please, please, please share with me in the comments how this landed and or send me a DM on social media. I really want to know how this hit you. And if you know someone, let's be honest, of course you do, who would benefit from listening to this episode, please do share it with them. I so appreciate when you bring these episodes to the people in your life that you love. Thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to deliver the next episode.